back to my channel. Hello if you're new here. Oh my god, I had eyeliner on my hand and at first it was giving like I'm the chosen one, like the infection spreading, I'm gonna become like a dark fake queen. Like, okay. Oh, you know, I've been reading too much Akatar. Anyways, welcome back to the channel. Hello, hi if you're new here. My name is Mo. I make video essays like the one you're watching today. Yeah. I still need to work on my intro. So before I get into this video, thank you guys so much for all the support on the channel. I'm almost at 10,000. I cannot believe that. You guys have been showing me so much love. Also, I just wanted to say, make sure you are following me over on Instagram and TikTok so you can keep up with me because I have been posting videos more frequently. But the type of content I post does take a little bit longer to do. So in the interim, if you want more of me, if you miss this face, you know where to find me. Let's get into today's video. You guys can tell by the title, today we are talking about everyone's favorite way to lose weight. And no, I don't mean joining Tumblr before the age of 13. I'm talking about obviously Ozempic. More specifically, I'm talking about the history of diet drugs, rise and fall in popularity throughout the years, the risks, and the overall roller coaster that has led us to the current Ozempic boom. Which, if you haven't heard of Ozempic, Mounjaro, or Wegovy, then you're lucky and I'm jealous. So you probably live under a rock in Bikini Bottom because it has been everywhere. I just wanted to fill you in on Ozempic and everything you need to know about it, but you guys know me. I started to research and I realized there was a bigger story there, and that journalism minor just jumped out. So come with me while we walk down America's yellow brick road, but instead of starting with opioids, poppies, we're gonna go a little bit farther back before Dorothy ever went to Oz and became slim. Like, what am I saying? I was trying to do this whole like yellow brick road reference, but whatever. Okay, let's get into the history of diet drugs in America. Believe it or not, the first weight loss drug we actually know of dates back to the 1800s. Doctors at the time would prescribe thyroid extract from animals, most commonly from pigs and sheep. This medicine was particularly gnarly because it would actually require the patient to cook and eat the gland of the animal multiple times a week. In this excerpt from an 1892 article detailing how one would prepare the medicine goes as follows. Half a thyroid gland lightly fried and minced to be mixed with currant jelly over the week. I'm sorry, I will never want to be skinny enough to eat deep fried organs and jelly sandwiches, but I digress. Apparently, on rare occasions, it would also be consumed raw, which is even more disgusting. Crazy, but it actually was pretty successful in the beginning, but was soon found to be extremely dangerous and of course fatal in high dosages. The treatment often led to hyperthyroidism, gain, as well as headaches, fevers, heart arrhythmias, etc. The type of medicine, which is actually known as desiccated thyroid extract, is actually used in a safe way today as modern medical technology has found a way to make a synthetic version, so no fried organ sandwiches, thank the Lord. After the 1800s, there was kind of a mild lull in the weight loss drug industry until the 1930s, when American factory workers were introduced to dinitriphenol, otherwise known as DNP. DNP was originally used as an explosive during World War I, but buzz started to grow around DNP when society noticed that workers who were exposed to the chemical while working in factories had increased metabolisms and extreme weight loss. Because of the miracle weight loss treatment spread across the nation, and in 1930, dinitriphenol was prescribed as America's first anti-obesity drug. 8 short years later, after it first appeared on the market, the drug was banned due to extremely adverse side effects. When I was Googling this, there were so many chemical compounds and scientific terms, and I was just like, girl, I am not no damn Bill Nye. But essentially, DNP works by speeding up your metabolism, which increases your metabolic heat, which led to hyperthermia, which is of course the opposite of hypothermia, and led to extreme fevers and eventual heart failure. Not being able to regulate your own internal body temperature was another side effect, and these two coupled together led to an extremely high mortality rate. According to my Google searches, you can literally still buy DNP today, although it's not FDA approved and it's like marketed towards bodybuilders. Much so that in 2011, there was such a spike in popularity that the FDA re-released a statement cautioning against the use and labeling it not safe for human consumption. So be careful with all these weight loss drugs, miracle products that influencers promote on the timeline, that they are not secretly DNP and that you are not putting yourself in harm's way. Again, after the initial shock and scare of the DMP craze wore off, America would see another spike after another major lull. Just like DMP, war was the primary influence of the 1940s drug of choice, amphetamines, more specifically Benzedrine. It was originally sold as an inhaler. Benzedrine was extremely popular because it was the first of its kind. Benzedrine inhalers came with a cotton strip soaked in amphetamine oil versus older models that were just simple pressurized cans of air. At the time, you actually didn't need a prescription to get a Benzedrine inhaler, and it became extremely popular to buy the inhalers and then remove the cotton strip and either consume them by eating them or injecting them intravenously. Benzedrine use started to slowly trickle into the United States, but with the attack on Pearl Harbor in December of 1941 and America's subsequent joining of World War II, Benzedrine use skyrocketed. There's a lot of information and literature and text about, I'm gonna use Pig Latin here, Atzinés using ethme during World War II and how it had an impact on the war, but American troops had their own secret weapon to keep alert on the battlefield. American soldiers were given dozens of 5 milligram packets of Benzedrine to keep them active during battle, and pilots were actually prescribed 2 Benzedrine inhalers per year. Oftentimes, fighting and living in unbearable conditions, sleep was a luxury during war. And what better way to boost the morale of a starved, war-stricken 18-year-old soldier than pump him full of amphetamines? According to Nicholas Roseman, a professor at New South Wales, Sydney, and author of On Speed From Benzedrine to Adderall, the drug also changed how men fought. Soldiers who should have been filled with fear and anxiety fought with purpose and confidence. He also goes on to say, pills were being issued for their mood-altering effects, but being described by everyone in the military as if they were just to fight tiredness. The drugs were also used to keep people in combat longer, and the expensities of war rationalized amphetamine as a worthy weapon against combat fatigue, which was the 1940s name for what is now known as PTSD. Imagine being a young child drafted into war and being given amphetamines to get over your PTSD. Like, no wonder all of our grandpas are fucking miserable. Sorry, it's really not funny. End of the war, Rasmussen estimated that 16 million Americans had been exposed to Benzedrine, and when soldiers came home from war, use amongst civilians obviously skyrocketed. Back in the States, Smith, Kline, and French, the company that produced Benzedrine, decided to try to market it to Americans as a miracle weight loss product, as many people came back from the war looking like shells of their former selves. Of course, like most drugs, it went through trial, but before it hit the market, they hired Charles Ivy, the scientist who helped them market it to the armed forces, to conduct a study, and unsurprisingly, his study found amphetamines were successful in causing weight loss, and therefore the drug was deemed safe for the market, and not only began to be prescribed to those who wanted to shed a few pounds, but it was also the leading depression drug in the United States for years to come. With the success of Benzedrine, the US saw a skyrocket of diet pills into the 50s and specifically the 60s. So that specialized weight loss clinics started to pop up all across the country, and at any given day a person could walk into these medical offices and complain about weight issues, poor diet, depression, and in less than the time it takes you to watch a Marvel movie, they'd be walking out with a complicated handful of scripts, what America would come to call rainbow pills. Rainbow pills and diet culture as a whole were a hallmark of the American 1960s, nowhere more so than Hollywood. The movie industry was no stranger to the use of amphetamines to boost productivity. In fact, it's said that legendary Hollywood producer Chuck Ozempic allegedly used Benzedrine heavily during the production of Gone with the Wind, with one employee recalling a time he shook the salts into his hand and licked them off of his finger like breadcrumbs. Actors like Mickey Rooney and Judy Garland have also spoke about the use of pet pills / amphetamines used to keep them up while they were filming their iconic movies, with Judy Garland actually becoming a full-blown addict and dying by overdose by age 47. The effects on the users were obvious. Hollywood continued to obsess over speed, mixing it with barbiturates, diuretics, sedatives, and a plethora of other drugs. The 60s was an extremely volatile time for the United States. We had the civil rights movement, the assassination of JFK, as well as the decade ending with the infamous Manson family crimes, resulting in the loss of Hollywood it girl Sharon Tate. No surprise that disordered eating, a condition often driven from a lack of control of one's life and the circumstances around it, thrived during the 1960s. In 1970, 9.7 million Americans had one time or another been prescribed an amphetamine. An estimated 3 million Americans were now addicted to a street version of the drug. It looked unlikely that things were going to change. However, when several wealthy young white women went on to lose their lives, Susanna McBee, a reporter for Life magazine, went on to write a bombshell expose about rainbow pills and the diet industry as a whole. Who was naturally slim and in shape her entire life, went undercover to expose the predatory and completely BS doctors and clinics that prescribe these harmful drugs. After visiting several clinics and being prescribed everything under the sun, she got to work on her expose, and after the publishing of the article, The End of the Rainbow May Be Tragic, Scandal of the Diet Pills, and a couple congressional hearings, voted to pass the Controlled Substances Act, which classified amphetamines as a Schedule III drug. And a year later, the change was made classifying it as a Schedule II substance with a high potential for abuse, with use potentially leading to severe psychological or physical dependence. Today, opioids like Vicodin and fentanyl, which are the major crux of the modern epidemic of legally prescribed drugs, share a Schedule II class with amphetamines and rainbow pills. The irony. America wouldn't see another boom a la the rainbow pills until 1990s burst on the scene with the internet, whimsigoth, and most importantly, Fenfan. Not to be confused with fentanyl, Fenfan is short for the chemical compound fenfluramine and phentermine. While phentermine is unfortunately still used today, this toxic cocktail was all the rage in the naughty 90s. Although as soon as Fenfan hit the stage, it did not take as long as previous decades for people to catch on to how deadly it was. Fenfan caused a host of cardiovascular issues, specifically valvular heart disease, which affects the four main valves in our heart. Many people would go on to lose their life from the combination of Fenfan, and it wasn't until the death of a totally healthy 30-year-old woman and the subsequent publishing of her story on the front page of the Boston Herald that the Mayo Clinic and the FDA stepped in, ordering more clinical testing on the duo. And shocker to nobody, they eventually found that Fenfan was unsafe for human consumption, and by 1997, the FDA withdrew it from the market. So we are now from the 1800s to the 90s, and we have unsuccessfully found a way to hack weight loss. And you would think, you know, we'd get the memo by now. Absolutely not. The 2000s would bring us such lovely gems as Metabolife, Quick Trim, and Hydroxycut, which were peddled from everybody to pro athletes to our favorite Kardashian clan. Though it seemed the air around these drugs were a bit different from the ones of the past. Remember the overall mentality being that this was a scam and something that celebrities were promoting for a quick buck. It seemed to spike in popularity like the old amphetamines of yore. I started to get hope that maybe society had ditched dangerous diet drugs and marched forward towards a more size-inclusive and accepting version of itself. And then 2023 happened and we met Ozempic. Let's talk about Ozempic, baby. Ozempic, also known as its generic name semaglutide, originally came on the market as a drug for those diagnosed and living with type 2 diabetes. In those who don't have diabetes, Ozempic works as an appetite suppressant and semi-stimulant. I know you're saying, Mo, well, if they're for people that has type 2 diabetes, how does it help you lose weight? What's not clicking? Well, I'll tell you. Well, actually, I'll let this article tell you. Semaglutide also helps the pancreas produce insulin, which is how it helps people with type 2 diabetes manage their diabetes. Obviously, we know our bodies need insulin to move the glucose or blood sugar we get from food inside of our cells. Where Ozempic works by mimicking the role of the natural hormone GLP-1, normally produced in response to detecting nutrients when we eat. GLP-1 is part of the signaling pathway that tells your body you have eaten and prepares it to use the energy that comes from food. So yes, folks, you've heard that right. Essentially and allegedly, Ozempic basically makes you skinny by convincing yourself you've already eaten. So you are starving yourself. So essentially, Ozempic makes you feel like you've already eaten and suppresses all desire for appetite, with some people saying that they even need to remind themselves to drink water. This is... Let's talk about celebrities and how they're obsessed with Ozempic. In 2012, Elon Musk, of all people, admitted in a tweet that he had slimmed down using another popular for now FDA weight loss approved drug called Wegovy. Wegovy and its equally as popular competitor Mounjaro are actually frequently mistaken for Ozempic. A lot of people take the two and everyone just assumes it's Ozempic, but it's a three-way. However, Wegovy and Mounjaro are actually to blame for the spike in popularity of Ozempic. Those two drugs are extremely expensive, with out-of-pocket costs anywhere from $900 to $1,300 a month without insurance coverage. Patients flock to the cheaper and less regulated option, Ozempic. It's crazy because the snowball effect that this caused actually harmed the diabetic patients, with most of them now having to wait and fight for their spot in line to get their medication. So that the FDA actually announced a national shortage of all three drugs starting at the beginning of 2022. From that point on, it just kind of seemed like Ozempic was everywhere, from Jimmy Kimmel's Oscar joke to Mindy Kaling's alleged injection parties. If you know, you know. Like, celebrities could not stop talking about Ozempic while simultaneously refusing to admit they were actually taking it. Well, with the exception of Chelsea Handler, who actually went on a podcast and said that her anti-aging doctor had her on it and that she was unaware, which was absolutely insanity. Okay, scary. Considering a doctor is just pushing this drug onto somebody who has no idea what they're taking and probably what they're paying for. You know, celeb culture is a trickle down, so eventually influencers started to come out and talk about their experiences being pushed Ozempic, honestly, in a way that eerily mimics the rainbow pill clinics of the 60s. In an episode of the Skinny But Not Fat podcast, plus-size creator Remy Bader opened up about her struggles with Ozempic. The doctor said, "I need this," and I had a lot of mixed feelings. A few months later, I went off of it and got into bed binging. It goes on to say that the doctor she saw to help her with the binging named Ozempic as the culprit. I saw a doctor and they were like, it's 100% because I went on Ozempic. It was making me think I wasn't hungry for so long. I lost some weight and I was like, I bet the second I get off, I'm gonna be starving again. I did. And then my binging got so much worse. The celebrities that we see opening up about Ozempic tend to fall in the reality TV star category, a section of TV notorious for its emphasis on keeping up with the Joneses at all costs. Not surprising, we see influencers who kind of fall under this entertainment umbrella be more candid about the things that they're doing behind the scenes to keep up appearances. Well, this time around, Hollywood itself has been a completely different story, with their take and use of the drug being very hush-hush. Although tons of celebrities have been accused of using weight loss drugs like Ozempic or Wegovy, medical history is rightfully private and super personal. Unfortunately, I fear in coming years we will hear more celebrities opening up about that section of their lives to the public as they deal with the possible long-term side effects from misuse. Like its predecessors, Ozempic is not without its drawbacks and warnings. Although long-term research on how the drug affects people who aren't living with type 2 diabetes is almost slim to none, drugs have been said to cause a host of issues: extreme nausea, headache, loss of appetite, urge to drink water, all the way to more serious cardiovascular issues, just to name a few. However, I personally think the biggest downfall of Ozempic is the mental toll it takes on those using it or those wanting to use it. Aptly referred to as an eating disorder in a needle by Real Housewives of New Jersey alum Jackie Goldschneider, the mentality surrounding the consumption and the marketing of the drug echo those of Pro-Anna Tumblr and those annoyingly persistent ads by that brand new. Using substances to block out natural hunger cues, bragging about losing X amount of weight in such a short amount of time, and encouraging others to partake in this behavior are all textbook signs of disordered eating. And with society's obsession with eradicating body diversity coming back in full force, we're left to wonder if Ozempic and the people we potentially lose to it will be just another pinprick in the ever-inflating balloon that is Big Pharma.